one of the first things that Parashara tells us about the Rasis is simply the body parts. Sutras 4 and 5, so right at the very beginning of the Rasis chapter, he says head, mouth, arms, breast, cavity, hips, pelvic triangle, the covered parts, buttocks, the pair of thighs, the shanks, and the 2 feet should be known with the head and others proceeding from Aries. It's one of the first things he gives us, and this is something we largely ignore outside of medical astrology. When it comes to medical astrology, we say, okay, let's look at these body parts. But if we consider that right before telling us this, he told us that the Rasis, that Vishnu manifested himself as the Rasis, which are the unconscious limbs of Vishnu. So these Rasis, he manifested himself as these Rasis. It lets us know that we can get a lot more information out of these body parts than just use them for medical astrology and saying, oh, you've got an afflicted Aries, therefore you've got a head injury in your life. We can do that with medical astrology, but there's a lot more meaning to this. And I think when it comes to the Rasis, one of the best symbols we can actually use is the body parts of the Rasis. And if you really think of those symbols, what the different body parts represent, you're going to be able to get a really deep understanding of the Rasis. And I don't think there's anything that will give a deeper understanding of the Rasis, really. It's really quite important. So let's think of Aries being the head. The head is basically everything that's back of your hairline. Look at it that way. So it does include your face, and you can consider it to be your forehead too, right through there. So that's Aries. When we think of Aries, what is it? It's the first thing. And the head comes out of the, birth is head first. So the first thing is the head. So the first thing is the foundations. So Aries is the body of laying foundations, of starting things. So a person who's got things in Aries is equipped, is living in a world, in a body, where they can create foundations, if those planets are nice. Okay, new foundations. So lots of time we think of Aries as being this sort of sign that's, starts things but doesn't finish things. No, that's only if Aries is afflicted. Those are called weak foundations or poor beginning foundations. But if you get nice planets in Aries, you get a person who starts things, okay? Sets the foundations for things. And sometimes the foundations for things that are taken, go on for a long time. So you'll see a lot of people like Samuel Hahnemann, who developed homeopathy, had a nice yoga in Aries, including the exalted sun. And so he set the foundation of a whole new medical practice. So it's the first foundation. It's the first thing. The head is the first thing. And man, the head is also the most important thing, because man's capacity is dependent on his brain more than any other thing. His body is weak, his brain is powerful. So in that context, we think of Aries as being the head. We go, wow, Aries is the most important sign of the Zodiac. You could literally say that. What's the most important body part? It's the head. And so, as far as man is concerned, so we can say, wow, Aries is really important. And right away, that'll give you the idea that if Aries got afflicted planets in it, it's going to really set the person back in life. Or if Aries has got healthy, robust planets in it, it's really going to give the person a head start in life, because their foundations, the things they start, are going to be solid and things they can stand upon, okay, and that the rest of their life can stay, build upon. They can build the rest of their lives upon that. The head, of course, is the center of intelligence, right? So this is the, so Aries is a body of intelligence. It's a body that intelligence can manifest through. And when we think of that, it becomes as no surprise that the sun's exalted in Aries. Parashara says the sun is intelligent. If we look at Shankhya Yoga, we realize that the solar force is the force in us that's attracted towards spirit. And that consciousness that's attracted towards spirit connects to spirit through the chakras, the energy centers in the head, not through the energy centers anywhere else. Okay? So, it emphasizes this intelligent aspect of the sun. So the sun in Aries is intelligent. Okay? And it's an intelligence of new things, new ideas, because Aries is the first sign, and one of foundations, of starting something successfully. If you think about, so really when you look at Aries, we're sort of saying, what's going on in your head? Sun in Aries is, there's some great ideas, some creative ideas going on in a person's head. Let's look at Saturn in Aries now. Saturn's debilitated in Aries. Why would Saturn be debilitated in the head? Well, because Saturn represents our sorrows, our miseries, right? And let's say those miseries are always in our head, right? And we're having miserable thoughts instead of sun-inspired thoughts. So by looking at simply what planets are exalted and debilitated in a sign based on the body parts and anything else, you can get a lot of understanding. So the sun, which is inspirations, is exalted in the head. And Saturn, which is our misery, is debilitated in the head. Because if our miseries are in our head all the time, if everything we do in life we approach from a foundation of our misery instead of the foundation of our creative inspirations, that's what a debilitated Saturn is doing. Okay? And lots of times I've seen some... What I found interesting about astrology, like with medical stuff and people who get to a point where they're literally just not functioning well, is that usually it'll take several planets to really get them to a place of not functioning well. But if there's only one planet that's in really bad shape, that one planet is, and it gets them to where they're really not functioning, it's almost always Saturn in Aries that's doing that, believe it or not. Okay? And that's again because the head is the most important part of man. That's where our strength comes from. All of our abilities are abilities that are centered in our head. Okay? Now, that's not to say other body parts aren't important. As you well know, they are, but we're going to get to those soon. So just think about the concept of this Aries as the head. It's the beginning of something, it's the start of something. It's what leads everything, right? The brain governs all of our functions. So therefore, just knowing Aries is the head, we should be able to assume or deduce that Aries represents the governing of anything, the governing of anything. So if you cast a chart for a new political party and there's afflicted planets in Aries, no, that political party is not going to be capable of governing anything. You look at their 10th house, sure, but focus on Aries too. And if you see, good planets in Aries, then yes, that political party is going to be able to govern something. Or if a candidate announces his presidency with good planets in Aries, yes, he will be capable of governing. Okay, so it's the brain that governs all of our bodily functions, and so that's a quality of Aries, of governing things. And of course, that makes the sun, the king, exalted in Aries, because he's suited for governing, right? So Aries is the field, the body that's capable of governing, which is our head. The part of our body that's capable of governing is our head. So we stick the king in our head, sun in Aries, we become capable of governing something. But if we put Saturn or Aries, we put a servant in Aries, someone who's not capable of governing, then they're in this body that they're like, wait a minute, what do I do here? I'm in this government body of taking care of things and building things, and I'm just not capable of it. That's what Saturn is Aries is in. And you'll find people who have Saturn in Aries that they're not able to manifest all their potential. They're simply not able to govern their kingdom in a way that manifests all their kingdom. Manifests, their abilities fully. I've seen people that were very successful as kids, doing really good as kids. But when it came to actually growing up and really creating their kingdom with Saturn and Aries, they just sort of gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And they just can't seem to govern their lives well, okay? Because if you have a servant governing your life, it's going to be a problem. Now, if that servant gets some help from some friends, say it's delighted by Venus, or, something like that, it gets some boost from its friends, then it will do better, okay? All right, so So Aries is the head, and give that more thought. You know, I'm just kind of going quickly through this to convey these ideas, but you really want to start thinking, when you see a planet in Aries, say, oh, this planet is in the head. What does that mean? Right? So if the moon's in Aries, you're like, oh, this person's emotions are governed by their head. Okay? Is that a bad thing? Well, the moon, Mars, which rules Aries, is neutral to Mars. Or sorry, the Mars, which rules the Aries, is neutral towards the moon. So it's not a bad thing, but it's not a productive, better thing either. It's just what it is. Okay, so always look at those body parts, and I think it's something we can get a lot of meanings for. It's really worth looking for. So Taurus is the face. The literal word that Parashara uses is the anana. And lots of times when they use face, the word they use literally means the mouth. So face is basically the part of their body that holds the mouth. Okay? Now the mouth, of course, is where we get our needs met. It's where all the needs come into us. It's also the part of our body that's most important for getting our needs met, because the face is where we have all of our senses. So we got our ears, our nose, our mouth, our taste buds, our eyes, of course. 4 of our 5 senses are concentrated in our face. Okay? So our senses, we have our senses to fulfill our needs, examine life and fulfill our needs. So we direct our senses here and there, and we use our neck to direct those senses. That's why Taurus also has to do with the neck area. So the face, neck are Taurus. Okay? The face without our neck wouldn't be as useful, because we'd only be able to sense what's right in front of us. But that's not efficient. That's not efficient use of our sense organs. So we have our senses all over. And even like eating, when you're eating, you're using your neck, right? You go grab an apple, it's like, oh, you use your neck. So even to fulfill our needs, we use our neck. If you drink out of a cup, you use your neck. If you drink out of your hands, you use your neck. If you drink out of a river, your neck becomes important. So it's the face and neck, astrologically, are sort of ruled by one place, because they're the things that allow us to get what we need, to spot and see what we need, and to get it inside of us. Okay? So Taurus basically is the sign of getting our needs met, of seeing the things outside and getting them inside of us where they'll do us some good. And based on that, it becomes really easy to see why the moon's exalted in Taurus. Right? The moon's exalted there because the moon represents getting our needs, the needs we have, the nourishment that we require, both emotionally and in any other way. So a person's able to get their needs met when the moon's there. They're very aware of their needs, and they're very able to adapt to having their needs met. Okay? There's no planets debilitated there, but just if we really understand what the face, what the mouth, what the senses are doing, what the neck's doing, then we really get a picture of Taurus. Taurus is about discerning our needs, figuring our needs out, seeing where we can find them, and then swallowing them, fulfilling them. That's what Taurus is all about. Happy planets in Taurus, planets in good Lajitati Vashtas, help a person fulfill their needs. To help them know what they need, find what they need, and swallow what they need. Planets in Pura Vashtas, so like a planet, the only planet that's starred by Venus is Jupiter. But if you get other Vashtas, say you get a Saturn-Moon conjunction there, well now Moon and Saturn are starving each other, so they hurt each other. And of course, the Sun is also debilitated, not debilitated, but in an enemy sign in Taurus. But if you get any bad Avashtas, bad Lajitati Avashtas in Taurus, the person is either unable to know what their needs are, unable to bring their needs to their realization, or somehow unable to consume the need. So, and that could simply be feelings of guilt. Sometimes people have issues where they don't feel worthy of something, they don't feel like they deserve it. So the need's like right there, but they won't take part of it. Okay? And that's one reason Taurus is a big sign of guilt. Afflicted planets in Taurus make a person have a sense of guilt, a sense of undeservingness, or not being worthy of something. And so not being worthy is when you say, gosh, I have a need, the need is there, but I'm not going to swallow it. And that also happens through Taurus. So think of Taurus in that context, that it's this body, a body part that's designed to get our needs met. It's designed to see our needs, it's It's designed to consume our needs, and it's designed to taste our needs. And afflictions to Taurus make that difficult. Healthy planets in there do that. So anytime you see Taurus afflicted, you know a person is not getting their needs met. That's simple. Whereas if Taurus is in good shape, you know the person's in much better ability to get their needs met. You also have to study Venus, of course, and you need to study the moon, who's exalted in Taurus, right? And anytime you study the sign, it's always good to look at the planet who rules it, obviously, but also look at the planet that's exalted there, because it always has a role to do. Like, for instance, Aries, as I mentioned, is the head, which governs us, governs all of our bodily functions and all of our actions. So the Sun is exalted there, but the Sun also is a governing planet, right? It's also a planet of rulership and leading and governing. So we have to look at Aries and the planet that's exalted in Aries, the Sun. Okay? All right. So let's get to Gemini. Gemini is the arm. So if you spread your arms out, you go, okay, everything in the length of my arms is Gemini. That means your upper chest. And I think I broke the chest down to the first 4 thoracic vertebrae. So we've got a certain amount of thoracic vertebrae. The first 4 are the Gemini part. And all the cervical vertebrae of the neck, the 7 cervical vertebrae, are the Taurus part. So the very upper part of the back is Gemini. I'm not going to go list all the different body parts that we find in these things, like there's different glands and everything. Let me expand that a little bit more. Let's just think about Taurus. Okay, Taurus has the mouth, has the senses, as I mentioned. It has the teeth, the tonsils, the salivary glands. It has, the jaw, the larynx, so the organs of speaking and communicating, and the top of the esophagus and the trachea. So let's think of some of these other organs that are in this Taurus body part beyond just the senses. So we have our larynx and our tongue, which allows us to speak, right? So that shows that a lot of speaking is about fulfilling our needs. If a person has afflicted planets in Taurus, they're not able to speak in ways that allow them to fulfill their needs. So they're not able to get their needs met due to not being able to verbalize them. Okay? Now other people might have problems. Taurus is not the only thing that has to do with speech, right? The lungs have to do with speech, particularly the lower lungs, which is ruled by Cancer, right? We'll get to that later. But the majority of the organs of speech themselves are in the Taurus area. So afflictions of Taurus make it hard for a person to speak their needs. Happy planets in Taurus make a person very capable of expressing or speaking or verbalizing their needs. Okay? And verbalizing our needs is, of course, a Taurus responsibility because it allows us to fulfill those needs. Now what else is in there? We got our teeth. Okay? What do our teeth do? Our teeth break things down so they can nourish us, right? So we can't swallow a whole apple, right? We have to use our teeth to break the apple into a smaller chunk and then chew it into smaller chunks. So Taurus also has this process of, okay, I have a need, but I'm going to do the work to get the need met. I'm going to chew my food, right? And that's also a quality of Taurus. Taurus is always also willing to work so that it can fulfill its needs, which is the act of chewing, and signified by the teeth. Okay? And if you think about it, it's our jaw muscles. And our jaw muscle is one of the most powerful muscles in our body. Our jaw muscles get a tremendous amount of work. They do a tremendous amount of work. So that's because Taurus is capable of a tremendous amount of work. But what kind of work does Taurus want to do? He wants to do the work necessary to fulfill what it needs. Okay? It's not like when you go on a run, your jaws are working, right? At that point they're not. But when it comes to, consuming your needs, getting your needs met completely, that's where chewing comes into place. And that's when Taurus is going to work real hard. Okay? We have the tonsils in the back of our neck. Now that's a really important part of Taurus too, if you think about it. What do the tonsils do? The tonsils cause our throat to be inflamed anytime we consume something bad for us. So one of the things that Taurus is good for, it's the body that we use, the body part that we use to determine if something's bad for us. Okay? So if planets are good in Taurus, a person has the ability to discern if something in their life is bad for them or good for them. If you've got afflicted planets in Taurus, a person is unable to determine if something's good for them or bad for them. So they can sit there and be swallowing things bad for them, meaning they can have all this stuff in their life that's hurting them, and they won't be aware of it. They won't notice it. You can almost, like they don't have tonsils. They can eat a bunch of junk food, and they don't get a sore throat. And I'm symbolizing that in their life. They can have a bunch of painful things in their life, toxic things in their life, and those things are draining and killing them, but they can't seem to stop consuming them. Okay? Whereas if you eat a bad food, and if you eat a food that's not suited for you, and you get a sore throat, you're going to go, oh, duh, maybe I shouldn't eat that thing, right? That's why we have tonsils. That's why we get sore throats. So that when primitive people were digging around seeing what was edible, they'd eat something, instantly their throat would start getting swollen and thick, and they said, ooh, that's not good for me. And if you eat really healthy, your tonsils become so sensitive to any bad thing you eat that immediately upon eating anything that's not super healthy, you'll feel a constriction in your throat. Because we eat so much bad food regularly these days, our tonsils are like, I give up. I'm not even going to try to warn you anymore because you're obviously going to eat that shit that you ate yesterday and the day before and the day before. So I'm not going to waste my energy trying to talk to you anymore. But if you're healthy, your body, the smallest thing that's not really healthy for your body will cause your throat to suffer. Okay? So Taurus is also doing this. It's watching out for us by signaling to us, letting us know that something's not good for us. So people who have got a good Taurus, they're sensitive to, wow, this is a harmful thing for me. Maybe I shouldn't swallow it. Maybe I shouldn't try to have this fulfill my needs. Instead, I can have something else fulfill my needs. Okay. If we think about, I want to go back to Aries and talk about some of the smaller organs besides just the brain. You know, the brain is so complex, right? We've got our brain, our pituitary gland, our pineal gland, our hypothalamus. We have all these critical body parts, okay? And all these glands are there for proper functioning of our happiness. Ultimately, our health and happiness are dependent upon these hormonal glands. The most difficult diseases to cure are the diseases caused by a malfunctioning hypothalamus, pineal gland, pituitary gland. If your pineal pituitary is not working, you're in trouble. That's like a very difficult thing to repair. So really these important glands for all of our health, but also for our mental and emotional well-being, are all in the head area. And this is why I said when you get afflicted planets in Aries, it can really make for some really difficult disease states, really difficult to cure. Because that's the foundation of your well-being, is in your brain, in your head, through these other organs. Now, we could spend hours probably talking about each of these glands and what they do and da-da-da-da. But I just want to convey the basic idea of how important this sign Aries is. Because it's the body part that's most responsible for our well-being. If you don't have anything there, that's fine. But if you have troubled planets there, you need to work those troubled planets out as a priority, as the first thing. In fact, you could almost say, as you go around the Zodiac, the thing you need to work out as a priority is the first thing in the order. If it's Aries, work that first out. Get that foundation sorted out. If you've got afflicted planets in Taurus, that's the second thing you need to work out. If you've got afflicted planets in Gemini, that's the third thing you need to work out, and so on. But say you've got no afflicted planets in Aries, no afflicted planets in Taurus, but you've got afflicted planets in Gemini, well, now you need to start at the Gemini body part. Get that body part cleared out, okay? Because those are always the foundations of your well-being. It goes all the way down. Okay. All right, so that's going back to Gemini. So, this part of our body here, the Gemini part, is collarbone, scapula, arms, hands, upper lungs, the first 4 thoracic vertebrae, and the lower portions of the esophagus and trachea. So, the most important thing is the upper lungs and our arms. And of course our collarbones and all that are about motion, about moving our arms too. So, when we think of our arms, what do? They have to do with being able to make efforts. And the word that, the Sanskrit word for arms, bahu, has to do with making efforts, making, the energy, making effort in something, endeavoring to do something, trying to do something. So, Gemini is the body part that lets us do something, right? It's the body part that lets us make an effort with something. It's a body part that lets us do something more than anything else. That's why if a person loses an arm, they feel very disabled. They lose a lot of their capacity to do things. So the body part of doing things is Gemini. Okay? Afflicted planets in Gemini restrict a person's ability to do things. It's really that simple. And by do things, it doesn't just mean do physical things, it means do anything. Okay? So, if your, say Aries is good, so your basic foundation solid, and say Taurus is good, but you're able to get your needs met. Alright, those are the essential things to life. Because of that, the sun's exalted in Aries, and the moon is exalted in Taurus. So if the sun and moon signs, exaltation signs are taken care of, it's going to help your sun and moon, the things that they're responsible for. And so you're going to have a pretty good foundation. You're going to do pretty good. But now let's go over to Gemini. Let's pretend Gemini's afflicted and you can't do anything. You're disabled. Okay? And bad planets in Gemini can disable a person beyond just the arms in any way possible. They can create complete disablement of the entire body because they symbolize our ability to do. That's what the arms, hands symbolize, okay? Now, so even if you have your health and you're getting your needs met, if you're not able to do something important to you, it's like, why am I here? Why am I alive? And of course, then you're going to sink into depression and not be happy, right? So we need good planets in Gemini too. The good thing is there's no planet debilitated in Gemini. Okay? Mercury, who rules Gemini, is only an enemy to the moon. Okay? Or sorry, it's not enemy to the moon. The moon's enemy to enemy. Mercury's only an enemy to Mars. Sorry. I missed the M planet. Mars is the only planet that by itself can cause trouble in Gemini. Okay? And that will curtail a person's ability to do. And they'll be frustrated in their ability to do. And when we're frustrated in our ability to do, we like to do others. What do? We like to tell other people what to do. So the more somebody tells somebody what to do, the more it is because they're frustrated and not feeling able to do what they want. It's just that simple. So when someone tells me what to do, I feel sorry for them because I know that they're not able to do a lot of what they want. Okay? So that's the Gemini sign. Now, other combinations of planets can cause some grief there, but the nice thing is Gemini is not usually afflicted. But if it is, yes, it's the third sign. It's the third most important thing to get straightened out after Aries and Taurus. Because it's the body part that allows us to do. And we want to do things. That's what we're here to do things, right? We want to create things. We want to overcome things. And you'll learn later that Gemini is symbolized by a man with a club and a woman with a lute. The woman with the lute is the doing creative things, the doing of creating. And the man with the club is the doing of overcoming obstacles or fighting battles, fighting oppositions, fighting obstructions, whether in people or something else. And if a person can't do those things, life will be frustrating and if they can't overcome obstacles, or lack meaning if they can't do anything beautiful here. Okay? Cancer is really important, and you're going to find that all the movable signs are important, and the body parts that have exalted planets in them, which can have a debilitated planet in them, will tend to be the more important body parts in lots of ways. So Cancer is the breast area. Okay? The Sanskrit word in the sutra is hrit, which means the heart, literally, as the seat of feeling and emotion. So it's this feeling center in us. Okay? A large portion of the lungs are contained in the breast area. The first reaction to an emotion is a change of breath. And Cancer is not only where we experience emotions, but also where we react to emotions. Okay? So it's the emotional center of the body, right? It's ruled by the moon. We've got the heart, the lower lungs, the sternum, the breast, the middle forethoracic vertebrae, and the ribs surrounding the heart are all ruled by Cancer. So basically, if you kind of find your sternum where your heart is, you kind of find where your heart's a little below the sternum, where the sternum begins, and then you go up to the section where your arms begin. That's sort of your Cancer area. And that's your lower lungs. In communicating, you usually use your lower lungs, not your upper lungs. The Gemini part, the upper lungs, we use when we want to do more. You know, so like if say you have this task that you have to do, you're going to find yourself going, and you'll find yourself just filling your upper lungs. Okay? Where in normal doing things, your upper lungs are not being engaged much. We're usually normally doing things out of our lower lungs. Okay? Because we're in that feeling state. But when we're going to do a great endeavor, we puff ourselves up, right? Fill those upper lungs. Okay? That's the Gemini part. When we talk, our talking comes out of our lower lungs. Now when we're going to argue, when we want to yell at someone and put them down and put them in their place, then the air also comes out of our upper lungs. So in shouting and screaming, we engage our upper lungs. But in normal communication, we engage our lower lungs. So when we're communicating frustration and anger and arguing, that's Gemini, upper lungs, okay? So a lot of us know if a person has afflicted planets in Aries, or in Gemini, they're going to have problems with arguing. Okay? There's going to be an imbalance of frustrated energy in that center. If there's nice planets there, that part of their body is going to be at peace, and they will exert themselves in successful ways, and therefore not have to argue. But if they can't exert themselves in successful ways, they get frustrated, and they have to use that upper lung of Gemini to yell at other people. Okay? So the lower lungs, the Cancer part of the lungs, is more where we communicate from. And what's the other part we communicate is our feelings. So we communicate our needs at Taurus, and we communicate our feelings at Cancer. And when you think about it, our feelings and needs, how different are they? They're really sort of the same thing. That's why the moon, who rules Cancer, is exalted in Taurus. Works out nicely, doesn't it? So when in talking, the Cancer, the moon, and Taurus, the organs of communication, the mouth, the tongue, the larynx, are all engaged together, communicating our needs, which means communicating our feelings, right? We can't communicate a need without communicating a feeling, okay? And one of the interesting things about when people argue, when they yell and fight, and they engage the upper Gemini part, they're literally not even communicating their needs at that point anymore. So someone would be yelling at someone for what they did. You came home late. It's like, that's not the problem. The problem is, my needs for you were not met. But that's not even what's being communicated when we're angry. So when we communicate out of this, use this upper lung to communicate, it's out of anger. And then it literally is a separation between communicating our real emotional needs. Okay? And you'll find people with afflicted Gemini, rather than being able to communicate their real emotional needs, they're arguers, they're debaters, okay? They're frustrated. See how much we can learn just from these body parts? And again, you should think about each of these body parts for one whole day, and really think about all the planets in these body parts, and all the different avashtas that can happen in these body parts. And if you do that, you'll probably know more about the signs than you ever knew before, and you wouldn't have to learn anything else about them. Okay. So going back to Cancer. So it's a heart center feeling. It's expressed in our emotions. It's used in conversation. Well, nobody wants to talk about something they don't have a feeling about, right? If we get stuck talking about something we don't have a feeling about, we don't want to do it. We get bored and want to leave as soon as we can. Okay, we want to talk about things we feel strongly about, right? Which is Cancer. So communication of feeling, and also being aware of the feelings, right? Now, the planet that's exalted in Cancer is Jupiter. So from that we should be able to learn something. We should say, okay, why is Jupiter exalted in the heart area? Okay, well, it's pretty simple. We want our heart to be joyful. Not only that, we want our heart to have wisdom in it. You're like, wait a minute, but wisdom should be up here. No, intelligence is in Aries. Wisdom, Jupiter, will do good in Aries because Mars is a friend to Jupiter. So yes, have your Jupiter in Aries and be happy about it. But wisdom is not based on intelligence. Okay? Wisdom that's supported by intelligence is good wisdom, Jupiter in Aries. But the body of the heart, the sensing, the feeling, the body of the moon, which is Cancer, and the moon is all-knowing, wisdom is more, comes out of all-knowingness. So Jupiter in Cancer knows wisdom. Jupiter in Aries thinks wisely. Okay? Those are a little different. It's better to know wisdom than to think wisely. There's a slight difference there. Okay? The difference is knowing wisdom makes you happy. Thinking wisdom makes you go, okay, now I have to somehow get what I know to connect to my emotional body so I can be happy too. Knowing wisdom connects you to your emotional body right away, so you are happy. And Jupiter rules joy. It's joy and bliss. That's the purpose of Jupiter. So Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Now, what planet is debilitated in Cancer? Okay, and this is a funny one, but it's Mars. And it's funny because Mars, though debilitated in Cancer, is delighted by the moon. So he's not starved like most debilitated planets. He's actually not feeling sad there, but he's not acting. So Mars is basically not a bad planet in Cancer. He's an inactive planet in Cancer. Okay? Now think about what that means. We got this planet Mars, who's about fixing things and changing things and fighting for things and overcoming obstacles to things. Yet, in the emotional center of Cancer, which is perceiving its needs, Mars is sleeping. And I think the reason he is because our feelings are, again, just feelings. Okay? Our feelings are just feelings. Ideally, they're joyful feelings centered on wisdom, Jupiter exalted. But this body part that feels, and then we put this warrior planet in it, Mars, where he goes to sleep. Which means Mars is not going to act on a feeling. Okay? Mars is not designed to fight for our feelings, basically. That's not what he's meant for. Okay? We have feelings about things, right? Let's say every feeling we felt, we acted upon. You know? Then that would cause a lot of problems. Because feelings are not meant to be acted upon. They're meant to be felt. Jupiter's a Kapha planet. He's not this planet of, I have to do this or else. He's a planet of, oh, I'm just doing this because. But Mars is a planet of, I'm having to do this or else. What if every emotion you had this idea of, I have to do this or else? That's what would happen if Mars was exalted in Cancer. And then the world would be really trouble. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, a sign of Saturn, survival, which is, I have to do this or else I won't survive. That's Mars in Capricorn. But in Cancer, it's I don't have to do anything because this is just a feeling I'm experiencing. Because of that, Mars and Cancer people are nice people. They're experiencing the feeling that they have, but they're not forcing anything on anyone. Okay? Now, if that Mars in Cancer gets afflicted in another way and does get starved, then yes, there'll be this urgency to force feelings on things. Okay? It'll be an urgency to force their feelings onto things they think they need. But Mars in Cancer by itself, he's happy. He's not forcing his feelings on anything. He's not creating a lot of conflicts for himself. And he's just not very active. Because Mars, his nature is, it's just a feeling. I'm not going to act on a feeling. So, Mars doesn't do that. It's not the nature of Mars to act on feelings. So he's debilitated in Cancer, but delighted there. So it's a really funny thing the way Mars works. And again, you could think countless hours about Mars in Cancer, and you'll always learn more about it. Okay, I like thinking about Mars in Cancer and Venus in Virgo, where these planets are debilitated, but delighted at the same time. So debilitated simply means it's not acting. It's being lazy. But you cannot act and be happy, or you could be like Saturn, not acting and unhappy when he's debilitated in Aries. But if you cannot act and be happy, it's sort of a wonderful thing, right? Well, I can just be happy just being. Being with my feelings. I don't need to act upon all these feelings. Okay? I can just be happy because I'm with these feelings. That's the Mars. That's literally Mars in Cancer. Okay? All right. And a good exercise is to think of this breast area. Think of what it does. We got the lower lungs, the majority of the lungs. We got our heart here. Think of every planet there and see how that planet would do in that body part. Okay? Okay, Leo is the cavity. It's the abdominal cavity where the majority of the vital organs are located. The stomach, the liver, kidneys, spleen, gallbladder, as well as the pancreas and adrenals. They're all located in this. So this is the area where we get all of our vitality for, we can say. These are the vital organs, the life, supporting organs, that without one of them you'll die. So that lets us know that the body part of energy and vitality is the Leo body part, right here. This cavity, he calls it. So I think you kind of go, like, find your hips, everything up your hips to where about your thing comes. Your, what's it called? Below your sternum. So above your hips to below your sternum. That whole area where the majority of our vitals are, front and back, is the Leo part. Okay. You can roughly look at it as the last 4 thoracic vertebrae, okay, when it comes to the actual spine. Okay. So it's the body part that gives vitality. People who do lots of work, like lots of prana work, or get a lot of strength, or people who are really strong, lots of times they'll get these bellies here. Like you look at these weightlifters, they always got power here, but it's not a flabbiness. It's like this hardness, this power here. So this is a power center. People who have a need to look powerful or to act powerfully, they invariably create mass in these organs, And, there's people who become soft and obese and flabby. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who got these hard but bigger stomachs. These are powerful people. They're able to get their way. They're like the kings. They push their way around through life. They got power. Okay? This is where all of our power comes from. They call this the hara, like in kung fu and stuff, in martial arts. And they try to cultivate chi here, vitality here, to use in their lives. So that's basically what Leo is. There's no exalted planet in Leo, and there's no debilitated planet in Leo, which is kind of nice. So it's the body part of power. So any planet in that area we're using with power. There's power put behind it. Okay? Well, it's no surprise that the more powerful fiery planets are happy there, like Mars, the Sun, and Jupiter. Okay? And why the more enjoying, relaxing planets, Venus, the enjoyable, and the lazy, relaxing Saturn, don't like to be in this powerful place where they have to wield all this power. Venus doesn't want to wield power. Okay? Doesn't want to. The Queen, the Moon does. The Sun, the King does. The priest, Jupiter does. Mars, Mars, the general, certainly does. But the servant doesn't want power. Venus, the diplomat, doesn't want power. He just wants to represent his king. He's a representative. He doesn't want to be the power, though. Okay? So that's one way you can look at Leo. It's the center of power. And so when you go through this, if you see people damage certain body parts, you can just say, oh, you're dealing with this issue in your life. If they hurt their breast area, oh, you're dealing with your emotions. If it's the Leo area, you're dealing with power issues. If it's the Gemini area, you're dealing with having problems with what you want to do. If it's the face area and your throat neck area, you're having problems with getting your needs met. If it's the head area, you're having problems governing your life, ruling your life. Okay? And so on as we go down. So again, just really make these body parts a priority in analyzing your signs. Okay? And you know, when you look at a sign, say, okay, I'm looking at this planet and this body part. What does this body part represent? And learn biology to help you if you want to. And this just opens up a whole world of interpretations based on the Rashi. Because just as the Rashis represent different bodies, like Pisces is a fish body, right? And Cancer is a crab body and so on. They also represent different body parts. And those body parts are containers. They're a container that consciousness will go in and be able to work a certain way. Alright? Alright, Virgos to hips. The word literally uses hips. So the hip area is from the top of the hip bone down to the insertion point on the femur. So you find your hip bone and reach down till you find the top of your femur. Okay? That's about the Virgo. You can consider that to be the Virgo area. You get the lumbar vertebrae of the spine are in that area. It includes the girdle where you have not all, but the majority of your intestines. And the intestines are responsible for assimilating what's useful and good and leaving what's not useful. Okay? Just keeping what's good and neglecting, just ignoring what's bad. Okay? And so that's what Virgo's all about. Virgo's about saying, oh, this is good, I'll keep it, I'll pick it up, I'll simulate it, I'll use it. This is bad, I'm going to ignore it. And that's an important thing of Virgo. I'm going to ignore it. I'm not going to throw it away. I'm not going to reject it. I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to ignore it. Okay? Because that's what those part of the intestines do. When we get lower down, we get into Libra, we get into the rectum and the bladder. The bladder says, I'm going to get rid of this. The rectum says, I'm going to get rid of this. Venus is a sign of getting rid of things. But Virgo is a sign of simply saying, this is a good thing. I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to ignore the rest. So you see people with good planets in Virgo, with good Virgo qualities, as they go through their lives, they'll say, oh, this is valuable. This is something I can use. I'll keep it. The same way your intestines go, wow, this is a nutrient I can use. I'll keep it. But this is stuff I can't use, so I'm going to ignore it. And just let it move through my life. Good Virgo people do that. So with people they meet, they'll go, oh, this is a wonderful thing about this person. And they'll enjoy that part. And all the junk about the person, they'll just go, well, I'll just ignore that part. I'll just ignore it. Whereas some people will throw people out. Okay? Like Venus debilitated in Virgo. Venus is the planet that's about saying, I don't want this. I want this and I don't want this. And this thing I don't want, I want it, move it away from me. That's why Libra rules the part where we have our excretory organs. Okay, our bladder and our rectum. So Venus prepares things to get evacuated, right? And Virgo doesn't. But if you get Venus in Virgo, a person has a really hard time taking what's good and ignoring the rest. So what does Venus in Virgo do? It doesn't accept. It doesn't accept themselves. It doesn't accept others. Let's think about this in context of ourselves, Virgo. Virgo's like, all right, I got some bad shit in me. I'm using this word on purpose because we're talking about the intestines. I got some bad shit in me. But it's okay because I'm going to ignore the bad shit and focus on the good shit. That's Virgo. Now we drop Venus in there and the person's like, I've got some bad shit in me and this is a big problem and my self-worth has just been diminished. Okay? But usually Venus in Virgo doesn't think that way. Because Venus is a relationship-centered planet, people, especially men, because Venus is the wife, they start projecting that Venus onto other people. And they see, oh, this person is full of shit. I have to fix this person. I can't accept this person. They really can't accept their own shit, but then they project on the others that they can't accept the other person's shit. That's really one of the big problems with Venus being debilitated in Virgo. It has a hard time accepting other people's shit. Whereas Venus, ideally, is a planet of learning to as the next sign, is the planet of learning to work with people, bring out the best in people, trying to figure out a way to make win-win situations. Okay, so Venus is about taking the shit and taking the shit and making it useful, like using it for fertilizer, for instance. Okay, so Venus is debilitated in Virgo. It has a hard time accepting the shit. Okay? Now the good thing is, or what's wrong with us, or the bad parts on us, the negativity in us, okay? And let me go back to Virgo. Virgo itself is, this when it's pure, or when there's a nice planet in it, like Mercury is exalted there. Mercury is the planet who investigates something. Mercury goes, oh, this is good, I'll keep it. It's bad, I'm just going to ignore it. That's what Mercury does. Write it off his list. Mercury doesn't destroy it when he doesn't need it. He just ignores it. He goes, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. So he's exalted there because the ability to see, yes, this is valuable, I'll take it, and ignoring the rest, that's what Mercury is all about. Mercury wants to be efficient. He's looking for something useful. He finds it, he'll use the useful thing. Why does he have to bother with everything else? People have to bother with everything else that's not a useful thing for them. Have a bad Mercury or a bad Virgo. Okay? That's why Virgo sometimes has a bad reputation. You get afflicted planets in Virgo, and you get a person who's dealing with things that aren't valuable. And what's the worst planet to have in Virgo? Mars. Because Mars is starved in Virgo. It's way worse than Venus. Venus is debilitated in Virgo, but delighted by Mercury. So I'll finish Venus in a minute. I'm going to distract to Mars for a moment. So Mars in Virgo is starved, which means he's in a container he can't work in. Mars is not able to just say, I'll take the good stuff and ignore the rest. He wants to destroy and fight the stuff he sees as not useful. So people with Mars in Virgo, they'll go fight things and argue against things that they don't need to bother with. They could just take what's good and not argue it. For instance, some astrologers who have Mars in Virgo who recently got really frustrated with us tropical astrologers. And some of these astrologers are using Ayanamsha that I developed back in 2001 or something. And they're still using it 16 years later. But instead of just taking the Ayanamsha that I developed and ignoring all the shit tropical stuff I'm doing, in their mind, the shit tropical stuff, they also want to fight against the shit tropical stuff I'm using. No, that's Mars in Virgo. When they could just say, okay, I'm going to take the Ayanamsha, I like it, and ignore the shit that Ernst says. That's a healthy Virgo. Because when it comes down to it, what Virgo understands is nothing's perfect, nothing's pure. Everything has some shit in it. So you take what's good, and you don't concern yourself with the rest. That's healthy Virgo. Mars in Virgo can't do that. No one is going to be able to say something that's all true, and especially all true for any other person. But if healthy Virgo is there, we can take what's good and useful for us. Okay, I can use this, and ignore the rest. And that's what friendship is. Mercury is friends. He's exalted in Virgo. Friendship is really that. It's the ability to say, yeah, I'll take the good thing this person has, the thing that I can use in this person, and I'll just accept and ignore the other stuff. I won't make I won't assimilate it. I won't bring it home with me. I won't make it part of my life. I won't worry about it. But Mars in Virgo will. So that's why Mars in Gemini, Mars in Virgo, you're going to find as the people who are constantly having the most troubles because of conflicts and arguments and debates and frustrations. Unless, of course, Mars gets supported by a friend really strongly. So you always want to look at the final of Ashtas, okay? Getting back to Venus. So Venus is in this place, in a body part, that has the function that's designed for picking up what's good and ignoring the rest. Okay? And Venus is happy to do that. He's delighted there. Why is he happy to do that? Because he picks up some good things in Virgo. Venus in Virgo will pick up the good things. But then Venus is not really active in making the bad things good. And you're going to see next when I talk about Venus and Libra, Venus and Venus, or about Libra, which is ruled by Venus, one of the very important parts of Venus is taking what's not useful and making it useful. Venus in Virgo is sleeping. It's not doing that. It's happy that it's getting some good stuff, but it's not expanding the person's worth. So imagine your life is like this. This is the Venus in Virgo life. I'm happy with the things I have, and I'm appreciative of those things. And I'm ignoring the things that that I can't use, that aren't useful for me. So I've got a full fridge of food, I have a nice house, and I have a pile of garbage in my house. Behind my house I have this mountain of trash. And it's fine, it's just sitting there. Okay? But wouldn't it be better if Venus took all that trash and sold it, and therefore had more worth in their life? That's what happens with Venus and Virgo. It's not getting its full worth in life because it's not finding out a way to make its trash worthwhile. In our lives, we've got valuable things and trash. We should use the valuable things and turn the trash into something valuable, right? That's what we need to do. That happens at Libra. So what is Libra? Libra's the pelvic triangle. And again, Venus isn't sad in Virgo. He's just not getting as much worth out of his life as he could be. Imagine if you can take everything bad in your life and turn it into something useful. Venus and Virgo can't do that, but he can appreciate the good things in his life, okay? So Libra is the pelvic triangle. This little triangle, you can find your femur, find the top of your femur, and that's the top of the triangle, and the triangle is basically follows your thigh triangle. You know, your little triangle there, okay? Holds the bladder, the rectum, the internal reproductive organs, ovaries in women, and prostrate in men. The 5 fused vertebrae of the sacrum also fall under Libra's domain. So the bladder and the rectum hold what has no value to the body. And it's something you want to get rid of. This is the junk, the shit, the urine. You don't need this. You want to evacuate this. But it's a sign of Venus. And it's a sign of business. Venus is the sign of business, of exchange and trade. And that's what good business is. Good business is saying, I got this pile of shit. How can I turn this pile of shit into something valuable? Isn't that what business is? Like they did that to Native Americans. We got a pile of cheap beads. And there's actually Indians willing to give us a pound of gold for a bushel of these beans worth like a couple shilling. So they grabbed these beads, they took them over there, just junk. Things that had no value really. So that's what business is all about. It's about finding an excess of something, which is basically shit, and selling it. So a person who's got Venus and Virgo, and you go into their garage, there's going to be a pile of junk. Or behind their house will be a pile of junk. In their closet there'll be a pile of junk that they could turn into money. Or they can turn into happy feelings. They could use that somehow. They could sell it on eBay and buy a new car. I mean, they could have $40,000, $50,000 of junk. And they have no thoughts of, I'm selling this. They just ignore it. They just ignore the shit instead of turning it into money. So Libra is where we have our shit, and we're just figuring out what we can do that's useful for it. Okay? So one of the interesting things about the rectum and the bladder is that's where we hold our shit and our urine. We hold it. Why do we hold it? Why doesn't it just fall out? Okay, I ate my apple, I did this to my apple, and now, boom, there goes the apple seed running down my leg. Why doesn't it happen that way? Because that would be a waste of shit. Okay? That would be a waste of urine. Because shit and urine are fertilizer. So if we shit and urinate in the right place, so we cross our legs and we don't pee or we don't poop, until we get to a right place to shit and urinate, we create compost, and then we have more food, which is the most valuable thing. The color of Libra is green. You want to have a green lawn, take your shit and urine, put it in a barrel, dissolve it, and put it on your lawn. Golf courses, I remember in the 80s when I lived in California, the golf course used sewer water on the base I lived on. And if you went walking there at night, I'd be really wary for when they turn the sprinklers on and run as soon as you heard them, because you would basically get doused with a giant squirt gun of shit water, right? So, but the grass, whew, it was green. I have a septic tank. The grass where my septic tank is the best grass in the yard. So I planted my fruit trees there so they can get some good shit. So shit is valuable stuff. In the old days, they used urine for dyeing cloth. The chemicals in urine helped us dye, get into the cloth in a way it wouldn't wash out. They used it for tanning hide. Urine was like this valuable ammonia-rich, nitrogen-rich thing. It was a chemical that they couldn't just go buy in a gallon at Walmart. They would use this chemical. So that's why we have a bladder that we can pinch on and off. And why we have a rectum that we can pinch on and off. So we can take that shit, which has no use in our body, but which has a use somewhere else. And Libra is the sign of saying, how can I make this stuff that's useless to me valuable in my life? Okay? Now, so it rules that area of the body. Now, the spine, the part of the spine that's in the Libra center is called the sacrum, as in sacred. So this is something good here. You know, there's good stuff in this part of the body. It's sacred, useful stuff. We consider it junk. We flush it down the toilets. But we really shouldn't. We should go piss in our garden, you know. Is what we should do. We should go piss on the mint patch and have really nice mint. Okay. But instead we just flush it to the plant and then they filter it out, and I don't know what happens to it at the end. Hopefully it goes somewhere to make something green somewhere, because that's what it's for. But in our lives as a symbol, if people have a healthy Venus, a healthy Libra sign, meaning they have planets in good dignity and good Lagitatia Avashtas, then the junk in their life, they're going to find a way to make that usable. Even within themselves, the junk we have within ourselves, how can we use that to enrich our lives? How can we use that to make our life better? Okay? Now, the planet that's exalted in Libra is Saturn. Saturn rules the bathroom. He rules shit. He rules what's junk. He rules trash. But all this stuff is useful. That's why he's exalted in Libra. Because Libra is a sign that says, on the body part, that can hold on to shit until it's useful and then sell it and make money, or use it and create something good. So Saturn Libra is the junk that's being held on until it can be used. So that's why Saturn's exalted in Libra. The Sun, however, has a purer body. So the Sun in Libra doesn't do good because he's in the shit bag, right? He's in the part that's holding on to the shit. And here we've got the purity, the pureness, trying to operate in this world. No, that's not what the Sun's about. The Sun is not your trash. It's the best part of you. It's the brightest part of you. It's the purest part of you. And it doesn't want to be, you know, traded in for shit or traded in as shit. It wants to be used to inspire and illuminate your life. But when it's in Libra, it's in the body part of, okay, I got some shit here. It's my Sun. It's my soul. What am I going to trade it in for? And that's exactly what Sun in Libra does. It trades in the best part of itself and as shit. It undervalues itself. A lot of times I see people with Venus in Libra who will sell themselves out. Instead of doing the great, inspiring things they can do, they'll sell themselves out to a job. They'll sell themselves out to work beneath another person's talent. They'll sell themselves out to be with a guy when they could be creating these amazing destinies of themselves. Now, of course, if the Sun has some delight from other planets, then the Sun in Libra can do really fine. But if not, yes, this whole creative part of creating, you know, really expressing what their intelligence is capable of, they're just trading that in for something of much lesser value. They're trading the best part of themselves. The Sun is the best part of you. It's the part that's we're here to express more than any other part. If we're trading that part in for anything in this world, it's a bad deal. That's the Sun in Libra. And then Saturns are junk. It's a shit we don't even want. If we can trade that in for anything, we're ahead of the game. We're doing really good. That's Saturn exalted in Libra. And every other planet, depending on how it's doing and its avashtas, will somewhere be in between there. All right. Scorpio is the covered part. That's your... Oh, wait. I got to go back to Libra. Okay. The other part that's in Libra is the internal sexual organs are centered there. Okay? Now, our internal sexual organs are about creating offspring, right? Okay? And it's really interesting that those body parts are in the same place, okay, as your bladder and rectum, the things that hold on to your junk, okay? So, because we consider, like, you know, procreation is critical to human life. Now, why is it critical to human life? Because it's about the survival of the species. So let's take Saturn again, survival. Saturn is survival. People with strong Saturns are very sexual. Why? Because survival of the species. Survival is not about just survival of us. The survival mechanism within us is the part of us that will do anything to survive. But that same survival mechanism of Saturn will do anything to get something pregnant. So it escalates the sexual energy to make people, you know, create offspring and maintain the survival of the race. So Saturn is not only personal survival, it's survival of the race. Lots of times people with a strong Saturn, they want kids in the context of genetic immortality. Okay? It's the survival of some part of themselves. So Saturn's exalted in Libra because Libra is the area of survival. You know you're going to die. There's nothing you can do about it. But your offspring can survive, and after that, their offspring. So your race can survive if you use those procreative organs of Libra. Okay, those internal sexual organs are the chemical factories that are actually doing this. The external sexual organs kind of just, you know, are just, it's like the spoon you take one chemical and dump in another one with, but really what's important is the chemicals that are creating life, which are in Libra. So, creation of, you know, preserving the race, that's Saturn. Okay, that's survival instinct that also wants to cause impregnation. Okay? Then, and of course the whole external nervous system, from the brain on out, that part of the nervous system is ruled by Saturn. The nervous system as a whole is Aries. But really, when we think of the nervous system, most of the nervous systems, the different parts of the brain, ruled by 6 planets. Then there's one part of the nervous system ruled by the last planet, Saturn, and that's everything that, all the nerves that come out of the brain. And of course, it's those nerves that get stimulated towards sexual activity, right? So we see a curvy person, or we see a handsome guy. That's still the nervous system that's coming out of the brain through our senses. You know, or we smell someone, we get a pheromone hit. Or we touch someone, or someone touches us. Immediately the sexual energy starts getting awakened, right? So that's because of Saturn there. And Saturn, that part of the nervous system, wants to invigorate that sexual energy, okay? Because it wants to survive. Now, the Sun's debilitated in the body part, that's about procreation. Because when you procreate, there's basically less time for your own self-expression. All right? The Sun is a planet of your self-expression. It's a completely one planet. It's just me. Sun is I'm the only person that matters. What I'm expressing, what I am, is all that matters to the Sun, ultimately. That's why he loves being in Aries. But in Libra, he's like, he's procreating. You know, he doesn't do good in this procreative area of survival. He's not about survival of, you know, he's not about surviving. Saturn's a survival instinct. Saturn's about living, okay? There's a difference between living and surviving. A person who wants to live says, I have to do that, and if I get killed doing it, it's better than not doing it. That's living. Surviving is, I'm not going to do that because it's dangerous. I'm not going to become an astrologer. I'm not going to become an artist, a musician, because I won't be able to financially survive. No. Sun doesn't say that. Okay? That's what the Sun in Libra might say. But the sun in Aries lives, and it says, I'm going to live and be what I am, and even if that means I live a shitty life that there's no way I can survive, and I'm starving artist, that's good with me. Okay? But in Libra, the sun's in the functioning in this area, that the tools that area has are about, okay, let's make sure you survive, and that your offspring survive. And life is sacred, so let's make lots of sacrifices, sacred sacrifices, to survive, including the sacrifice of truly living. So you'll find people with Sun in Libra, unless there's something helping it, they really struggle with truly living. And one of the reasons they don't is because their sexual energy, they follow their sexual energy. They follow an attachment to another person, which is a sexual energy to another person, even though they're not able to express who they really are with that person. Their sun's in a place that just can't express who they really are, can't really create who they are. But it can partake in the survival of, survival. But the sun's not happy there. It's not what the sun's for. The sun wants to live and shine. So, and in the area of survival, it gives up, it sacrifices too much to survive. Okay? All right, Scorpio. It's the external sexual organs and the anus itself. These are vulnerable organs that are not protected or strengthened by bone or surrounded by flesh. God says, no, Scorpio is a vulnerable place. It's the soft place. Okay? Those are the delicate places, the covered parts, the parts we always need to protect, right? So even in primitive societies where no one wears shirts, men or women, they tend to wear things down in that little protected area. And the suture they use is the covered parts here. Okay? And I think that it mostly actually is the genitals more than the anus. Most books include the anus in this. So the very outside of that part, which is just so close to your sexual organs, you can't get within an inch or two of them without being within an inch or two of the other one. So that's the Scorpio part. Okay? Now, there's no planets exalted in Scorpio. There's only one planet debilitated in Scorpio, and that's only in the first part of Scorpio, and that's the moon. So the moon's debilitated in Scorpio. What does that tell you? That trying to get your needs met through your private parts isn't going to work. Duh. Yet a lot of people try to do it. So how we can look at Scorpio, it's in the context of getting our needs met, okay? We can't expect those parts to get our needs met, okay? So, for instance, our anus, it drops the poop. Yes, we want to drop that poop where it's most valuable, but if we sell all of our trash, it's never going to be enough to get our needs met. So if I recycle everything I own and take it to the recycling center, and everything I don't want that's useless to me, I sell on eBay, it's still not going to be enough to get my needs met in my life. It's not going to cut it. Okay? Yes, it'll add to my life if I do that. That's what Libra wants to do. It wants to enrich my life as much as possible. But it won't be enough. Okay? Because your life can't be based on that. Can't be founded on that. Which is why this part of the body doesn't have bones. Exactly. It's the very externals, and not including the bones behind that external part. Okay? So, another way to look at the moon in Scorpio, I can't get my needs met by things that aren't solid, that don't have skeletal system behind them. I can't get my needs met behind things that aren't solid, that aren't protective, that aren't concrete. But when the moon's debilitated in Scorpio, that's exactly what a person's trying to do. They're trying to get their needs met on things that aren't real enough, that won't fulfill their needs. Okay? Things that have no foundation. Things that can't give any security, can't give any protection. And so, they end up becoming very scattered people with all kinds of fears and neuroses, because their fulfilling of their needs is focused on things that can't fulfill a need. A need needs to be, in this world we live in, a need needs to be filled in a concrete way. The moon in Scorpio is trying to fulfill needs in non-concrete ways. Okay? So an easy way to say this is, Taurus is the face, where moon's exalted. Scorpio is the genitals, where the moon's debilitated. No matter how much sex you have, and no matter how good that sex is, you'll still be hungry when you wake up in the morning. Okay? So no, Scorpio will not be able to fulfill your needs. It's not what it's for. Okay. So the question is, what is Scorpio for? What's good about these body parts? What's good about these body parts is they allow us, I guess the best way I can say it, they allow us to have those momentary connections that are required for life to work out. So, I have to have a momentary connection where I piss on my mint patch and fertilize my mint so I have nice green mint for my tea next year. Okay? And the reason I'm using that mint patch because there's that book, Captain So-one's Mandolin. They made a movie out of it where the father of the girl would always go pee on his mint patch. And she would yell at him, but he would say, "Why do you think we have such good herbs?" You know? So I keep thinking of that example whenever I think of, all this. So we urinate through our external sexual organs. Same location for men and women, but more for, really close. So, and our anus, well, we make a momentary connection to squat in an appropriate place and poop. Okay? If we squat in inappropriate places, we get sick, right? We can pretty much pee anywhere, no one's going to get sick because it's sterile, but it'll be gross and it won't be useful. We have to poop in appropriate places or we will get sick. So in the old days, armies used to get dysentery because they'd camp next to a river and pee next to the river and then drink out of the river. And they didn't know that bacteria were getting washed into the river and everyone was getting sick. They just didn't know. Now we know that, and if you go camping, it says don't poop within a quarter mile of this river or 200 meters. They want you to poop far from the river so you don't contaminate it. So, Scorpio is this thing where we make momentarily contact with things. Momentarily contact. Okay? And a lot of that momentary contact is about don't. It's the restraint of Mars. Don't poop there, don't poop there, don't poop there. Poop on that far from the stream. Yeah, I know you want to live by the stream so you have water and it's pretty at the stream and all the trees are at the stream with your food on it, but don't poop there. Go poop over there, right? That's Scorpio. So there's the time to make contact. So we go poop and you make contact over there in the toilet area. You're potty trained, basically. Okay, go pee here. So basically, Scorpio is a sign of being potty trained. Learning where to let loose on things. Okay? Sometimes we have to let loose at certain times to maintain the health and continuity of life. Sex is also one of those times. It's the external sexual organs. Yes, go let loose sexually. Okay. But no, it's not going to fulfill your needs in life. The moon's debilitated there. But yes, there's times where it's important to go let loose sexually. It's important for the human race. It's important for yourself. It's also important to go pee sometimes in the right place. And it's important to poop sometimes in the right place. And it's important to use this. So these organs are not meant to be the foundation of our life. We're not supposed to say, well, the purpose of my life is to take a shit and pee through my external sexual organs. And the purpose of our life is also not to have sex. But there's times where those things are important and they need to be done at the right time. When the moon's in Scorpio, you don't. So when you look at Scorpio, it's the body part that we need to use sometimes, but only at the right time. If we do it all the time anywhere, we destroy our lives. Because that part can't be the foundation of our life, because there's no bones there. Okay? There's no skeletal system there. It's the only body part that's not centered on a skeletal system part. Okay? The skeletal system is ruled by the sun. This is the foundation of life. So if Scorpio becomes the foundation of life, a person will be miserable. life won't work out for them. They'll muck up their life. They'll have no security, no safety, no nothing. That's why the moon's debilitated there. So the good thing is, Mars is only an enemy to Saturn. So any planet in Scorpio will be either okay or good. Okay? No planets exalted there. Well, kind of makes sense because those are not supposed to be the most exalted, most important parts of humanity. Although we sure like to act like they are sometimes. Saturn is the worst planet there. He's starved in Scorpio. So, Saturn, I had it in my head, I forgot what I wanted to say, darn it. But there's no planets exalted. We'll just focus on the moon. If I remember what I was going to say about Saturn, I'll come back to it. So the moon in Scorpio is getting our needs met, trying to fulfill our needs in the things that only are meant to be done occasionally at the right place. In the right bedroom, on the right toilet. Just that simple. Okay? I'll have to remember the Saturn thing. It's important. I had it and I kept talking and it went away. Alright, so that's the good old covered parts. Covered parts. Keep them covered most of the time. And occasionally you want to rip the covers off and go wild with them. Take a big dump, take a big piss, have great nights of sex. But you realize that's not where your needs in life will get met. But there are things that need to be done. The buttocks is Sagittarius. Because the buttocks are the gluteus maximus, as they're called, is the largest muscle in the human body. And it's the most responsible muscles for moving and walking and running. The one physical advantage humans have over any other land animal is that we have the greatest proportion of butt muscle to other muscles, to body weight, to other muscles. Okay? So that gives us the longest endurance of any land-dwelling creature, land-traveling creature, not including birds and stuff. So how far can a horse run in one day? Well, 100 miles, maybe. And then the next day he's going to drop dead. The 24-hour record for a human is 165 miles. We have a race here locally every year where they have a 25-mile running race and a 50-mile running race. The race is called man versus horse. They also have a horse running that race. The humans win the 25-mile race, and they also win the 50-mile race. They win the 50-mile race by a lot more than they win the 25-mile race for. And if they had a 100-mile race, they'd win that race a lot more than they won the 50-mile race. So humans have this capacity for endurance, for long-term motion, that no other animal comes close to. In fact, unless you put a human on any other animal, they're never going to go more than like 10 miles a day. They just wouldn't enter their little brains, right? A horse is not going to go 50 miles in one day all alone. Sure, when he's got a person on him, he's slower. But if he didn't have a person, he just wouldn't do it. Whereas human, all on his own volition, will say, hey, I'm going to do 100 miles today. They do that. There's a tribe in Mexico that once a year they have like a 50, 100-mile race. And after the race, they all get drunk. And that's just what they do once a year. So, it's the buttocks. So Sagittarius is the sign of long-term endurance. That's what it is. It's the body part suitable for long-term endurance. What is long-term endurance? It's purpose. It's saying, I'm going to do this no matter how long it takes. I'm just going to keep going because this is what's most important to me. This is my purpose. Okay? This is what makes it the sign of purpose. Purpose means this is a long-term goal. This is my longest-term goal. The sign that has the capacity to achieve a long-term goal over time is Sagittarius. Okay? It also rules the coccygeal vertebrae of the tailbone. Okay, so your little tailbone, which is really small. The purpose of a tail is to maintain balance while moving. In man, the tailbone is short and has no effect on maintaining physical balance, but it does symbolize the idea of balance, the idea that it's important to act with balance, that every action is balanced with the reaction, and so it's important that actions be guided with wisdom. It is wisdom in man that allows for balance, and the tail of Sagittarius allows man this wisdom. So it's the idea of everything we do, every motion, And our biggest motion is done by Sagittarius, because our biggest muscle, which gives motion, is in our buttocks. Every motion, every action has a reaction. That's the tail, the balance. Everything we do is balanced by something, our tail, a reaction. So Sagittarius is the sign that's equipped to pursue a purpose in a balanced way. A purpose that doesn't have a reaction that's negative. So if an animal, you cut an animal off who really needs his tail, like say a monkey. They really use their tails, and you snip his tail off. Then that monkey's going to go do things and hurt himself. He's going to do an action and have a bad reaction as a result of not having a tail. Even better, cut the tail of a bird off. Cut that tail feathers off. And then tell the bird to go fly, right? He's going to have a very bad reaction when he tries to fly. So the tail is what balances the reaction of an attempt, an effort, a long-term effort in the context of humans. So Sagittarius is the part of our body that gives us the capacity to understand the reaction we're going to experience in our life based on the purpose we pursue, the journey we take, the long-term journey we take, which is Sagittarius. Happy planets in Sagittarius, planets in good dignity or good logitati avashtas, those planets are moving towards a purpose where the reaction will be very positive, where the effect of that purpose will come with positive reactions. Luckily, no planets in Sagittarius, Jupiter has is no enemy to anybody. So there's no planets in Sagittarius that will be starved all alone. But you can get conjunctions of planets and aspects that can be starved. But all by itself, no planet in Sagittarius is a problem. And there's many good ones. There's the Sun, there's Jupiter, and there's Mars. 3 good ones. Okay, the rest are indifferent there. So those 3 planets in Sagittarius help a person have a bigger long-term goal. You know, they're more into their long-term goals. And they have the wisdom to have long-term goals that don't have negative repercussions. But if you get negative planets in Sagittarius, things that get starved by other planets or shamed by other planets, then the person's goals in life, the things they're going towards over the long term, end up having negative repercussions. Okay? Bad reactions. So that's it for Sagittarius. It's pretty simple. Now Capricorn is one of the fun ones. It's thighs. The Sanskrit word they use is Janu, J-A-N-U. It's usually translated as knees. Okay? And so Capricorn in Western astrology too, they say it's the knees. And lots of times most books actually will translate the buttocks as the Sagittarius, the butt, as your thighs. So you'll commonly see Sagittarius is the thighs, Capricorn is the knees, and so on. But if you really translate it, it's not so. The thighs is Janu. In Sanskrit, Janu is a measurement of, I think, 32 ungulas, which are finger widths, or finger digit lengths, which equals about 56.6 centimeters, or about 32 inches. Okay? It's a length they would use. So if you read a Vastu book on how to build your house, it'll say, make this wall this long, and they use this word, Janu, which means the length of a thigh. Okay? It's not the length of a knee. It's not this much. It's like this much. Okay? So, it's the thighs. Now let's think about what the thighs do. The thighs suffer, right? As we told you, the buttocks actually do most of the work. But they're located in a mechanically advantageous place, and they're big, so they allow a person to continue going a long time. Okay? The thighs, though, they feel the work. They feel the pain of the work, right? So when you go on a 100-mile hike, you go on a 100-mile run, and then you walk up a flight of stairs, it's your thighs that feel like they're dying. Your butt feels pretty good still, you know? So the thighs is where we experience the pain of our work, the hardship of our work. Okay? So if you think of a person who has no physical ailments and has no accidents, has no physical pains, they're still going to experience physical pain in their thighs if they use their body. It'll be the first place they experience physical pain. So if you live a natural person who goes on hikes and goes to runs the way God intended instead of driving everywhere, he's still going to go, my legs are tired. You know, this is a hardship. It's hard because my legs will be tired. This is the part that's designed to experience fatigue. Now Saturn rules it. Saturn's like, I'm tired, I need to rest. So the good part of Capricorn is, okay, I know when to rest. The thighs are the body part that tell us when we're tired. How I tell if I'm right, if something's wrong with my body, is I run up the stairs. And if there's anything wrong with my body, when I get to the top of the stairs, my legs are like rubber. You know, they're not happy legs, they're dead legs. And then I know that my body's fighting something, or I ate too much Christmas cookies or something, and my system's off. If I run up the stairs and I just run up there and I notice I have legs, then I know everything in my system's running good. So their thighs are what tell us it's time to rest. Okay? So that's why Saturn rules the thighs. It's time to rest. Now, if you have a knee problem, you can have a knee problem at the bottom of your thigh bone or at the top of your shin bone, your shank, which is Aquarius. So the knee is, part of the knee is Capricorn and part of the knee is Aquarius. But that's because the knee is just a space where two bones meet. Okay? So that's how we want to look at it. Same way, we have our neck and then we have our Gemini part of our spine, but we don't have a sign for the space between those two places. Okay? So that's how I look at the knee. It's just where two signs join, Capricorn and Aquarius, and we don't need a separate sign for that. And we have a kneecap on top of that, right? We got a little kneecap on top of that. So half the kneecap is a Capricorn, give half the kneecap to Aquarius, okay? Top one to Capricorn. And if Capricorn ruled the kneecap specifically, we would have a lot of people with kneecap injuries. But the truth is, the kneecap is rarely the thing that's causing a person a knee problem if they have a problem, right? Okay, so Capricorn rules those thighs, which alert us as to when we need to rest and be tired. Now, the planet that's exalted in Capricorn, and the thighs let us know that we're making the effort. It's the thighs that let us know you made a lot of effort today. Like if you think of man as not a man driving a car where your sore butt and sore back tell you that you drove 500 miles. No, not that. We're talking about natural living. In natural living, the person, you worked hard that day because you walked 100 miles, or you walked 50 miles, or whatever. You're on your feet chasing antelope all day or something. So the thighs are the party part that lets us know we've really done a lot, that we've done a hard day's work. So in that connotation, the thighs give us the idea that we're the doer. I know I did all that because my sore legs, my tired thighs are sore. So obviously I must have done it. That's the more internal idea of Capricorn. So the idea that we're the doer is Capricorn. The idea that we're suffering, that we're working, that we're hurting is Capricorn. Okay? The idea that we're doing the work is Capricorn, because that's where we feel we did the work. And I think in the Mahabharata, it's really interesting that Duryodhana had a boon that he only could get hurt in his thigh. The rest of his body was protected from any weapon. He couldn't get hurt. So he couldn't be defeated except by having his thigh broken. Except by having the idea broken that he was really not the doer. And Duryodhana, of course, has so much to do with the whole ego manifestation and the ego trying to ruin our life in the Mahabharata, and the ego playing unfairly and tricking us. That's what Duryodhana represents to a large degree. And so this idea of being the doer needs to be broken. That's the broken thigh. And that's when Duryodhana was destroyed. So the idea that we're the doer is that. So Mars is exalted there. Mars is exalted in the sign of you're the doer. See, you feel the fatigue, you feel your muscles working. You're the one who walked all this way. That's not true. You're really not the doer. But Mars needs to believe that. See, the thing about Mars is our will. It's not our free will, it's our will. And Rashid said it best. He said, there's no such thing as free will, but you have to... No, Gandhi, I think, said it too. But there's this idea that there is no free will, but you have to act like there is. That's Mars in Capricorn. Acting like there's free will. Why do we have to pretend there's free will? Why do we have to act like there's free will? Because when we act like there's free will, the things that manifest, the things that happen in our life, create a catalytic reaction within us that helps us grow in consciousness. And Mars is a catalyst. Okay? He rules alchemy. If we don't think we have any will, if we think nothing we do matters, our consciousness will not churn things over in a way that allows for the growth of our consciousness. So that's why we have to pretend why there's free will when we know there is no free will, and surrender everything to God. And that's the tricky razor's edge of the spiritual life. Okay? So Mars in Capricorn acts like there's free will. Because he's acting like there's free will, the internal growth is accelerated. And Mars is all about the internal growth. He's the brahmachari. He's the lifelong student, the trainer, the guy who wants to get stronger and stronger in everything he does, including his spiritual development, including his psychological development, and yes, his physical development and his worldly development too. And all those things work together as our consciousness grows, because we act like we're the doer. We don't have to think it, we have to act like we're the doer. So it's important to act like we're acting, like we're doing. And Mars in Capricorn is really capable of that. Okay? So, Mars is exalted there. Now what planet's debilitated in Capricorn? It's Jupiter. Because Jupiter thinks that, in Capricorn, he thinks he's the doer. He thinks he's the doer of his purpose. Well, when you do that, you're going to feel anything you do is not worth doing. Because if you think you were born to do something here and try to make it, that makes it worthwhile being here, there's nothing you can do in this world that's worth being here for. And that's Jupiter and Capricorn. Jupiter and Capricorn is going, my purpose is to do on planet Earth. Capricorn is just the idea that we're the doer. It's the feeling like we're the doer, the fatigue in our muscles. But we're not. It's our buttocks that are doing most of the work, as I mentioned. But the experience that we're the doer is Capricorn. So, if we think being a doer is the purpose of life, that what we're doing is the purpose, that we're actually the ones doing it, two things happen. One thing is, we'll feel terrible about all the horrible things that we end up doing along the way. So imagine a guy running 100 miles. And every plant he steps on, he stops to cry because he crumpled that plant. He goes, oh my God, I killed this plant. No, you're just running across the ground. Okay, that's what you're doing. Okay, the plant died. But if you see yourself as a doer of every step, you're killing an ant, you stepped on a bug, you stepped on a flower, whatever, then how would you want to run? You don't even want to run then, you'll just stop. That's what happens in Jupiter Capricorn. They see themselves as a doer, and so it can become too painful to do. And then they stop doing. Okay? And they see themselves as a doer in the wrong way, in the context of their purpose. But more commonly what happens is, they want a purpose that's worth existing for. Okay? That's worth being the doer for. There's no purpose that's worth being the doer for. Because it's not true that we're the doer. So trying to find purpose in there being something worth doing is a lie. It doesn't work. And so people with Jupiter and Capricorn, unless it gets helped out by another planet, will start feeling like this has no purpose. Because if you see it as, I was born to do this, no, it has no purpose. I was born to be an astrologer. Well, guess what? There's thousands of astrologers. And oh, that guy came up with that. Oh, way before I even thought of it. Ooh, maybe this isn't what I'm here for to do. And now I'm just going to go to be depressed. That's Jupiter and Capricorn. I'm here to win a gold medal at the Olympics. Well, gosh, how many gold medals have been won in the Olympics? Oh, I won the gold medal, but oh, next year someone else beat me, or I didn't go, but next somebody else won the gold medal and everyone forgot about me. Now, how can that be my purpose, right? So there's nothing we can do here that can define our purpose. And if we approach our purpose as something, I'm here to do this, we'll be depressed. One way or the other. Either we'll make so many mistakes, we'll feel bad about ourselves, because we always will make mistakes as we do anything. Or more commonly, nothing feels meaningful enough to actually have been born for. There's no action we can do in this world that feels meaningful enough to actually be born here in this very difficult, confined prison. It's like locking someone up in jail and saying, hey, be happy. You were born to be in jail to clean the toilets in this prison. It's like no one would be happy with that. Same with anything we do in this world. We're locked in this prison of limitations where our soul is trying to find expression. In the face of that, nothing we can actively do here in any concrete way is worth it. The only thing that's worth it is the internal transformation that takes place, which happens when we act like there's free will, Mars in Capricorn. Okay? Hope that explains enough. If not, just keep studying it. Keep thinking about it. And there's also stuff written in your manual that I'm not even talking about. So you want to use this course with your manual. I'm not going to repeat a lot of stuff that's in the manual because I talked about it in the old Rasi Sutras course. Aquarius is the Shanks. So the Shanks are your calves, basically. This from your, bottom of your knee to your ankle. These are the intermediary that connects the power put forth through the thighs, which really, is pushed from the buttocks, and to the feet, which allow us to have the stability. Okay? And the Shanks, the most great thing about the Shanks is, your calves, your Shanks, is that this is the part of the body you think less about. It's the least commonly thought about body part. In fact, the only time you think about your Shanks is when you hit your shins against a coffee table or hit your shins against a rock or get kicked in the shins. Otherwise, it's like your Shanks, it's like, I don't even think of that body part. Unless you're trying to be sexy and then you want everything to look nice and trim and you shave your Shanks and you wear heels to make your Shanks muscle up a certain way or whatever. So then you might think about your Shanks. But really, the Shanks are the part of the body that have the least noticeable function. So when you use your body in a natural way, it's the part of your body that has the least notable function. You just don't think about it. It's an intermediary. You pay attention to where your feet are when you walk. You pay attention to the fatigue in your legs when you walk, But you don't pay attention to your Shanks until something goes wrong with them. All right? So, the Shanks are the part of the body that's most suitable to be ignored. And that's why it's ruled by Saturn. And that's why Saturn has his Mula Trikona there. There's parts in our life that we just can't change. We just have to bear those burdens. Pick up your cross, is what Jesus said, right? That cross is Saturn. That's why Saturn's symbol is a cross with this guy, hunched over with this cross on top of him. So, the Shanks are the parts that we just ignore. There's some parts that we just need to ignore. And that's our pain, our misery, our poor me, or oh, my ego wants this but it doesn't get it. All those psychological complexes, we just need to ignore them. That's all we need to do to them. We just need to ignore them and do everything else. Sometimes we're going to become aware of our psychological complexes. We're going to get kicked in the shin. We're going to trip. What happens when you trip? Tripping is when something hits your Shanks and then you fall over. That's the only time you notice them. When someone hurts us because we're out of order, or when we trip. We're going along the way and we're not coming from a truthful place, we're not coming out the best way, and we get hit in the shins and we fall over and we go, oh gosh, I was doing this because I was trying to compensate for a psychological complex. And you want to say, oh, I just want to forget that psychological complex. This is a part of my body I need to give at least thought to as possible. It's all the stuff I can't change, I can't fix, just that I have to deal with, and there's a lot of other better things I could be doing in my life. So, if you've got healthy planets in Aquarius, it's a person who can go through life without looking at their garbage all the time, without paying attention to the things that hurt them all the time. But if you've got afflicted planets in Aquarius, then a person's always looking at their wounds. They're always looking at what's wrong with them. They're always looking at what they don't like about them. They're basically self-absorbed in their psychological complexes. So you have a choice. Are you going to be absorbed in your psychological complexes or just not give the ego its care? Depends on Aquarius. Good planets there, or even no planets, and a good Saturn, because Saturn's part of this. Aquarius is only as good as Saturn is. So people who've got, again, there's no exalted planet, there's no debilitated planet in Aquarius, but people with Saturn in Aquarius are very good at just saying, so what? That's not, there's so many other things to focus on and do and be happy about that I'm not going to worry about my little wounded ego today. That's literally what Saturn in Aquarius is like. Any delighted planets in Aquarius are the same. It's like, why should I worry about my wounded little ego when it's not even real, when I have all these beautiful experiences and things I could do instead? Same when Saturn's afflicted. When Saturn's afflicted, Capricorn and Aquarius suffer. So always, when you look at these signs, look at their lords and say, oh, Saturn's afflicted. So their idea of being responsible, being the doer, is greater than in truth. And they focus on their psychological complexes more than is healthy. Anytime Saturn's afflicted. But also, afflictions in those signs will bring about the same thing. So look at the planet, look at the Lord. Okay, that's Shanks. Pretty simple. Pisces is one of my favorites. It's the feet. It's all it is. It's the last organ. It's the last thing. Well, in the Sanskrit text, spiritual text, they say the beginning and the end are real, and they're the same. Everything else is not real and doesn't matter. Everything in the middle is not real. The beginning and end are what are important. Aries and Pisces, they're the important too. So they're ultimately the most important signs. Aries is our head, where our intelligence is and our ideas is. But Pisces is our feet, which represent our understanding. Okay? Now, what's really interesting, if you think about Pisces, think of our feet. Our feet are dirty. They're touching the earth. They're always dirty. If you wear shoes, they're dirty with bacteria and mold. People who wear shoes all the time, who wear shoes in their house, when they get old, they invariably get fungal infections unless they spray all kinds of anti-defectants in them, or they spray all kinds of sweat suppressants in there. But when they do that, the toxins that want to leave their feet stay in their body and cause them to have other diseases like gout and arthritis and who knows what else. It's really important that your feet sweat when they want to. They're supposed to. In fact, in homeopathy in the old days, they constantly talked about diseases that came from suppressing your foot sweat. Because that's when it became really popular to put on applications that would keep your feet from sweating. Because if you wear shoes, your feet are going to sweat unless it's really cold. So feet are dirty. They're meant to be dirty. Pisces is the dirty sign. It's dirty. It's the closest to the dirt. You're walking through the dirt. You're walking through the trash. That's what Pisces is all about. And that represents, Pisces is the part of you that gets dirty as you live your life. No matter who you are, as you live your life, you're going to do some dirty deeds. Okay? Lord Rama shot a guy in the back with an arrow. That's a dirty deed. Okay? So, it's impossible to live in this world and not do a dirty deed. Not do something that hurts another person. Not do something we wish we hadn't done. But if we have that understanding, we can see where all that falls into place. And we can have the understanding that frees us from the pain of being dirty. But we are dirty. There's no avoiding it. So, the feet is where we get understanding. And the feet is the dirty part. Okay, symbolize understanding because we're standing on them, right? It's the foundation of our lives. It's ruled by Jupiter, our wisdom-giving planet. The interesting thing is, why do our feet get dirty? There's only one reason, because we're standing on a dirty world. We're standing on the dirt of the world. That's why our feet got dirty. In heaven, our feet wouldn't get dirty because we'd be just stepping on clouds, okay? But on earth, our feet get dirty. So Venus is exalted there. Because Venus is the planet of worldly wisdom. Venus is the planet that knows how to navigate through life through this worldly life, more than any other planet. So when Venus is exalted in Pisces, he's like, yes, you're walking through this life and you're going to get dirty, but I'm here how to teach you to navigate through that dirt as healthily and enjoyably as possible. Okay? And I'm also going to teach you how to use that dirt to your advantage. Because Venus, like we talked about, knows how to use everything in this world to its advantage. Even the poop that wants to come out of your butt, okay? Through Libra, as we talked about. So Venus has this capacity to make utility, to make everything worthwhile. So Venus in Pisces it's a dirty world, but every moment is precious. Every moment is worthwhile. There's a worthwhile something all the time. There's always something I can get out of every situation that's worth having, that's vitalizing, that's nourishing, that can give me a feeling of something, a good feeling somehow. But do I have the wisdom to see it? That's what Pisces is about. Venus helps a person have the wisdom to see that. The planet that's debilitated there is Mercury. Mercury says, I have a plan and I have a way. I have the way of the Bible. I have the way of the Quran. I have the way of the, Srimad Bhagavatam. I have the way of my guru. Mercury represents the rules and the laws from your guru and from society. And now it's in this dirty world where those rules and laws just don't work. So a person with Mercury in Pisces is burdened by the fact that the rules and laws that they're trying to follow just won't work. They'll have to break them. And it'll hurt them, and they'll be frustrated and upset because of it, because they don't have the Venus there, the worldly wisdom to know how to live according to rules and laws in a dirty world. Venus gives that worldly wisdom. So a Mercury and Pisces person, if they're a judge and they're trying to follow the law, they'll follow the law to the letter. Or they'll be a corrupt judge. They'll go to these two unhealthy extremes. You want the judge with Venus and Pisces. The judge who goes, yeah, there's the law, but we're living in a dirty world, and the law has to be applied intelligently. That's the judge you want, okay? Or you want a judge with Mercury and Virgo, because the Mercury and Virgo judge, who's, the intestines, says, okay, these are all the laws. But the laws that are healthy to apply in this case are these, and these other laws I'm going to ignore. If a judge takes every law, every written about a crime you committed, wow, you're really kind of at the mercy of law, and you may get treated unfairly. But if he has the intelligence to say, no, in this case, these are the laws that can be healthily applied, I'm going to ignore these other laws. And so no, I won't cut your hand off for stealing a loaf of bread. Even though the law says if you steal a loaf of bread, I got to cut your hand off. So that's also a healthy use. But when Mercury is debilitated, no, it can't function in a healthy way. The rules, the laws, the things your guru tells you to do, which are the rules, are just not going to function in the dirty world that you live in, the dirty world we live in. And that's what Pisces is about. Pisces is about gaining the understanding and wisdom to walk through a dirty world healthily. The same way that our feet have the coordination ability, the gracefulness. Venus is a graceful planet. The gracefulness to walk down the road barefoot without getting hurt. So if you barefoot run, you realize what your feet can really do. We just put feet on. We just put shoes on. Putting shoes on is like Mercury debilitated. It's like saying, I'm going to put these big heavy boots on and just go trampling over anything and not care. If I want money, I'm just going to go into the bank and shoot everyone and take it. I just don't care because I got these big heavy boots on. I got my big gun. I got a bigger gun in my truck. And if the cops come after me, I'll just blow them up. In fact, I got a bazooka behind my back seat. That's like putting a big heavy pair of boots on and trampling through the woods. Okay? You just think you don't have to care about anything. And all of a sudden, you catch the front of your boot on a twig and you fall over and face plant into a boulder and break your nose. And get brain damage. Make it worse. That's what walking with boots is like. You go out there and you walk barefoot, and you learn that this is a dirty trail. There's sharp things, there's painful things, there's things that can break my toes, there's things that can cut my feet. And you run through all that stuff, and you never ever tripped and hit your nose. You're actually safer without the feet. Because you develop the delicacy, the grace of Venus, to land on a rock this big that's flat when every other rock around it is sharp and pointing up. And your foot just touches that one bit of rock and gets you to the next step. And so it's this ever graceful action of dancing through this minefield of dangerous rocks, and your feet just land on where they're happy, and you don't get hurt like you would. you have to practice it because you're used to clumping around like an idiot with a bunch of boots on or a pair of shoes on. So that's Venus and Pisces. It's the grace of being in a dirty world without getting hurt. And it's our feet, more than any other organ of our body, that's encountering this dirty, painful world of sharp rocks, of cactuses, of glass, of oil stains, whatever, and developing the grace to get through it. An interesting thing happened about 2 weeks ago. My car wouldn't start at the trailhead, and it's about 1.5 miles away, so we decided we'd all just walk home. But when we started walking home along the road through the trailhead, the surface was so bad, and the shoulder was so bad with so much nasty stuff that it was like, My daughter said, no, this is crazy. I said, don't worry, I'll go get it. And then it started like snowing. I'm like, great. So instead of taking a casual walk, we're like, okay, I'll have to just run and get the car quick so they don't get too cold. So I started running through this really insane surface, like with all kinds of nasty things through it, from just 1.5 miles, but like territory that was so bad, my wife didn't even want to walk on it. And I didn't want to run on the road because it was the same road I got ran over by a truck. So I don't like being on the shoulder of that road. I wanted to be as far away from the actual road as I could. So I ran this 1.5 miles, and I had to move my feet differently because of the kind of terrain it was. It was really nasty shoulder, and there was all kinds of sharp, nasty stuff there. It wasn't like a trail. It was just the side of this brutal highway. I ran the 1.5 miles, and I was conscious. I said, you can't get hurt. If you get hurt, you're going to have to hobble home, and it's going to be an hour before you get, or more, almost an hour before you get back to picking up the wife and kids. And I managed to gracefully somehow get through this 1.5 miles of just stuff you don't want to run on barefoot without getting hurt. And I thought to myself, oh, that's how the Indians did it. Because I always wondered how the Indians would be barefoot up here, because I can be barefoot on the trails, no problem. But how can they be barefoot off the trails? And I've learned how to do it. My son, he's barefoot off the trails. He's like a friggin', he's like a Apache, like a barefoot Apache out there. He just jumps all over off the trails, and I was like thinking he was like made out of stone. But on this little run, I realized, wow, he just knows his feet are that graceful because he's really never liked shoes his whole life, whereas I kind of used to wear shoes. So this is the idea of our feet, being able to move through any terrain, moving through any dirt, moving through the worst situations and getting through it. But Venus and Pisces is us being able to do that in our lives. To be able to navigate the most tricky relationship situation without getting hurt. That also Venus Pisces can do. To navigate the most stressful world event without anyone pushing the red button and blowing us the kingdom to come. That's why in any situation of danger, you want Venus there. Any situation that's dirty, where things can just go wrong, you want Venus and Pisces there to navigate that, gracefully navigate something dangerous, something dirty, something nasty, in a way that no one gets hurt. Just like being barefoot. So if you want to experience Venus and Pisces, learn to go barefoot out in the woods. Learn to run barefoot. Learn to walk barefoot. And you want to experience Mercury and Pisces, put your biggest, heaviest pair of hiking boots on and go trample out in the woods and realize how miserable you are doing it. Okay, and really how much more work it is. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I need to say about Pisces. Okay, there's some more in the other course. The audio course, none of this stuff I've talked about in this course is in the old course, so you have 2 Rashi courses you could benefit from. All right, thank you.